welcome to Urban TV Exclusive. And if you have been listening to the news, you would know that East Africa is such a big topic in Uganda and indeed East Africa. Matter of fact, recently the president of Uganda asked all of us that whenever there is a public function, the East African anthem must be played, of course, parallel to the Ugandan national anthem. That's how big East African community has become. And if you've traveled outside Uganda or elsewhere in East Africa, you know that it is beginning to become easier for one, if they're East African, to cross from one country to the other. So we have, I think, the right guest on the set, and that is Ambassador Dr. Richard SEZIBERA, who is the Secretary General of the East African Community. Dr. SEZIBERA, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
It's definitely good to have you on the show. Let's begin with the issues that I hear on the streets. Many East Africans are made to believe that there is a coalition of the willing and then the other side. Now, the coalition of the willing is Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda. Then there is Burundi, Tanzania. Do we have a community or communities within a community?
No, first of all, the East African community is one community of 5 countries. But I think the East African community is beyond a community of countries. It's a community of the people of East Africa. And therefore, the 130 plus million East Africans who live in this geographic space we call East Africa are East Africans. And it would be wrong to see the community as just an aggregation of the 5 countries. I think that is important to say. But secondly, your question is, can you have a community within a community?
Not can we. Do we already have a community within a community?
I'll put that back to you. This country, Uganda, has I don't know how many districts.
Okay.
So it is possible to have different communities within one bigger community. You began by saying that 3 countries, Kenya, Rwanda,
and Uganda
are doing some things together, which is correct. They have some projects that are shared along the Northern Corridor. These are East African projects, which are implemented by 3 partner states. Some other projects are being implemented at the national level. So, just an example, a simple example. This year, Kenya began laying the standard gauge rail from Mombasa to Nairobi. Now, this is an East African project because it is in our East African master plan, but it is implemented at national level, the Kenyan level. Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi are having discussions on the Central Corridor, that rail line from Dar es Salaam to Kigali to Bujumbura eventually. That is an East African project which is implemented by 3 of the 5 East African countries. So I think what is happening and what is important is that those countries that are implementing East African project, first of all, do so, and secondly, that they share what they are doing with the rest, progress reports with the rest of their partners, but there's nothing wrong about it.
So in your opinion, the coalition between Uganda, Rwanda and Kenya is a good thing for the East African community? Is that what I hear you saying?
I don't call it a coalition. No, I call it an initiative to implement projects on the Northern Corridor.
So it is a good
thing.
It is a good thing, and it should continue.
It should continue, it should, I think, at the margins, there have to be some changes. Other partner states have to be invited, and I'm sure they will be invited to see what the three are doing, just as happens when Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi are discussing the Central Corridor. We urge that they invite other partner states. So I think there has to be a better flow of information. But what is happening is absolutely within the treaty provisions for the community.
So as Secretary General, you don't see any problem with this?
With implementation of East African Community Project? Absolutely none.
Okay, thank you very much, Ambassador Dr. SEZIBERA. If you've just joined us, this is Urban Exclusive, and I'm hosting the Secretary General of the East African Community, Ambassador Dr. Richard SEZIBERA, and we're talking East African Community. Now, in building blocks, some people feel, the gradualists, that you should build piece by piece, piece by piece. There are those who feel, let's do it now. Those who are chap. And in the end, in building the East African community, which school of thought do you think will carry the day? Those who are saying, let's get this work now. And between those who are saying, let's get this work to work right away. And those who are saying, no, let's go slowly. Let's move slowly. Which school of thought do you think is going to pull the day?
I think East African integration is too complex to be divided into only two schools. It's like building a house. When you're building a house, you don't do, it is true, theoretically you begin with a foundation, then you lay the walls, then you roof it. That is the theory. But the practice is, as you know, as anybody who's built a house knows, is that as you lay the foundation, sometimes you also have to buy the tiles at the same time. So you are laying the foundation, you are buying the tiles, you are discussing with those who will supply you with piping.
And the plumbing, yes.
Yes, and the plumbing. So in theory, there is a linear way of doing these things. In practice, you have to do many things at the same time. So it is true that for a good political federation to come into being, as East Africa has decided, you have to have a good functional common market, a good customs union, a good monetary union, which the heads of state have now signed on to. That is correct. But in practice, as you build a customs union, you also have to begin the process of political integration, because the customs union cannot occur without political integration. So you have to do many things at the same time. So I think both schools that you mentioned,
the gradualists,
they all have a bit of truth.
Okay.
Yes. So for us who are in the kitchen, we get the right bits of the gradualists, bits of, I don't know, the other ones. What did you call them?
What do I call them? I would call them the chap. You know, those of us on the street.
The ones you call the chap.
Yeah, the chap. Those. Let's get this thing working now. I don't know where
we pick both.
We pick a little bit of both.
Some from the gradualists, and we build a community.
Okay. Now the person out there watching Urban TV wants to know: are we building a country? Are we building a regional bloc? Is this another version of European Union? The person out there who doesn't understand these dynamics that happen in the boardrooms and in the communiques wants to know, is this a country where Uganda is going to disappear and Kenya and the rest, and then we have one country? In simple terms, those are the questions I hear. Is this another country that tears down the rest so that we have one? Or what exactly are we building here?
Well, I think what we are trying to do is to rectify a historic injustice to the people of East Africa. Because the people of East Africa have coexisted for millennia, centuries. Whatever you call them, in the past they had different political formations. But we've been one people who've been trading with each other, who've been collaborating and sometimes fighting in the past. And then we had this historical injustice called colonialism that comes in and defines who we should be. So I'm sure Uganda found you here.
It definitely did.
Yes, you didn't find Uganda and join it. Uganda found you. Somebody brought it.
Yeah.
And then Kenya found some other people and they called them Kenyans.
And Rwanda found you.
Yes, Rwanda found me. So, what we are trying to do is to rectify this historical injustice and to say we should define ourselves. Who are we? Not who the colonialists
Think we are.
think we are. What are we? And I think we are East African. Now, within that East Africanness, we have to make sure that these barriers created by the countries, because the countries are a reality. Now, Uganda is a reality, Tanzania is a reality, Rwanda is a reality, Burundi is a reality, Kenya is a reality. You can't wish it away. But the borders that were bequeathed to us, we can do something about. We can stop them from being permanent barriers to just facilitators of exchange for East Africans. That's what we are trying to do.
Okay.
Free movement of labor, free movement of capital, free movement of goods and services, so that the people of East Africa can benefit from this East African.
I understand you. So, do I hear you say implicitly that we are going to do partial rectification? Because if we are to rectify a historical situation, shouldn't we go back to, we have the Bafumbira in Uganda, who I think are the same group of people in many ways as the Rwandese. They are Tanzanians who speak Kinyarwanda. If we are going to do the full rectification process, shouldn't we go back to exactly what we were? Or are we saying that's never going to happen? We do the partial thing.
You can't go back. You can't go back.
Why not?
Because history does not go back. If the colonialists had not come and interrupted our own processes of state formation, you would not have had the Bafumbira as the whites found them here, or the Rwandese as they found Rwandese here, because we were in a process of our own state formation. What the eventual outcome of that state formation would have been, I don't know. Maybe we would have had other entities, but designed by us. Just as the Germans had some small states, they go together, somebody came and put them together in their own way, you end up with a Germany, just as an example, determined by the Germans. So you can't go back and say you want Prussia or whatever it was. We can't go back to say, let's go back to the Rwanda before the colonialists, or to the Burundi before the colonialists, or to Tanzania before the colonialists, because you don't roll back history. What we can do, however, is determine what our role in the current world will be. So, if, as we now know, the challenges we face, we don't asserting ourselves in a world dominated by huge giants. China, 1.2 billion people. The US, 320 million and growing. The European Union, that trillions of GDP, $1 trillion and growing. If you're going to be to make your mark in this modern world in which we live in, you cannot do so as a Ugandan, or as a Kenyan, or as a Tanzanian, or as a Rwandese, or as a Burundian. You've got to do that as an African, first of all. But for you to do that as an African, you've got to begin by integrating those who are closer to you, the East Africans. So that's what we are trying to do.
Ambassador Dr. Richard SEZIBERA is telling me that history has changed East Africa, and even in our attempt to do a rectification process of what history did to East Africa, we may meet challenges. Where are we in as far as getting to where we should be as East African community? Where are we?
I think we, over the last 13 or so years, the current community has been in existence. We've come a long way. We have a functional customs union. This year, we are implementing a single customs territory, meaning the movement of goods has been eased. It's aimed at being seamless. When I flew into Entebbe, I did not use my passport.
Okay.
I used my national identity card, which is a program that we've had under the Common Market Protocol that is being now implemented in 3 countries, will be implemented in others as we move forward. So that we have a customs union, we have a common market, which is functional. We've just signed on to a monetary union that has a 10-year roadmap to a single currency. There's been major investments in shared infrastructure, the roads, the railways. Now the focus on energy. Our ports in Mombasa and Dar es Salaam have improved efficiency. It's taking, we're now counting, for example, we are counting the number of days it takes to move goods from Mombasa to Kigali,
Yes.
in days, not weeks,
Not weeks.
as happened in the past. We are seeing Malaba as an example. Malaba border post between Kenya and Uganda used to have lines of trucks waiting 4 weeks to cross. Now that border post is processing about 700 trucks a day.
A day, okay.
Trucks are taking, what, 30 minutes?
To get out of Malaba.
Yes, Malaba. So there's been tremendous improvement. We've seen the movement of students for education students, partly helped by an institution we have based here in Kampala, called the Inter-University Council for East Africa, which is harmonizing education curricula, qualifications framework, fees across the region. We are seeing the business community beginning to enjoy the benefits of harmonized laws, regulations. The central bankers have done a lot of work. They've now established an East African payment system, which began operations this year, meaning you can do, East Africans can trade in their currency in Uganda. Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania began. Rwanda is joining very soon, as soon as they've done the technical work. And Burundi is not too far behind. So I think we've come a very, very long way.
How soon is it going to take for me or someone out there watching this to get up from Kampala and walk down to Rwanda or Tanzania and quickly get a job without going through long processes? And number 2, that I want you to respond to, does it have to take 10 years for us to have legal tender that says East African community? Is the process that long that it takes 10 years?
Well, on the first one, question of work permits, we are working on the work permits. I think Rwanda has the easiest work permit regime. Uganda Cabinet has just discussed the work permits and waiving fees and so on. Burundi is doing the same. Kenya has done the same. We are working with the United Republic of Tanzania to do the same. Okay. So the work permit fees and regulations around it are a work in progress. And I think it's delayed, but I think we're now...
No timelines?
We do have timelines.
But you are not committal?
No, it was supposed to have been in 2010. So
But
a bit late.
That was supposed to be. What is it going to be?
Now, I think the latest is 2013.
Okay.
No, 2014. This year, we should do all this.
So we can promise that 2014 that will be in place.
But I was coming to the second, more complicated aspect of your question.
Okay, without finishing the first one.
Because the first, getting a work permit also depends on the jobs available.
Okay.
And we have a big problem with unemployment. Even Ugandans cannot find jobs in Uganda. So if you want to cross to get a work permit to find non-existent jobs in Rwanda, you'll probably not get a work permit. Not because you cannot get it, but because there is no job, which is a completely different issue we have to deal with, the question of unemployment.
I know that if you go to hotels in Uganda and generally East Africa, the chefs and top managers will most likely be from one of the partner states in the East African community. My guess is Kenya. Shouldn't it be possible that the protectionism is lifted so that the competition is stiffer and then the end user, the customer, gets the best service?
I fully agree with you. Now, some people I've heard people complain, Kenyans are taking jobs in Ugandan hotels and so on and so forth. If you count, how many are they? How many? They can't be 10,000.
Certainly.
They can't be 10,000. And yet, so that shows you that the Ugandan, as an example, I'm just using this as an example, that the Ugandan hospitality industry is very small. You probably know all the big hotels in this city.
Please don't mention because I will charge the hotels.
You know them, I'm sure.
Yes.
But a New Yorker would find it hard pressed to name all the big hotels in New York. So my point is, let's grow the economies. You can only grow them by integration. And then let's move beyond the minor parochial issues. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who is your chef as long as they give you good food at an affordable price.
Okay, I hear you, but have you also come across this Kenya phobia, if I can call it, in your travels within East Africa? Because in my travels, I have had travels within Rwanda and Tanzania, and of course conversations in Uganda, and people feel that Kenya is pushing the East African community because it's going to be the one winner in this. Since the Kenyans are aggressive, they will seize the opportunity. Is that just hypothetical, or is the Kenya phobia something you've also come across?
Well, I think it's a feeling based to a large part on ignorance. In my culture in Rwanda, we have a saying that when you ask a child to beat their enemy, they beat their brother, because this is the child they play with. I think this is a little bit of what is happening here. Kenya, see, the East African economy, all of us combined, is smaller than Angola.
You're saying that Kenya, we are smaller than Angola?
Yes, all of us combined. We are much smaller than a very tiny country in Europe called Estonia. So those who think Kenya is a giant are wrong. It's like an ant thinking a grasshopper is a giant. No, we're all very, very small. And therefore the challenge we have is for all of us to grow. That's my first point. The second point, when you look at the statistics, those benefiting from East African integration are not the Kenyans.
Who are they?
The figures show us that trade, the fastest growth in exports to East Africa is from Tanzania. And then Uganda. Then Kenya, Rwanda, and Burundi in that order. So the fastest, Tanzania was exporting about $100 million worth of goods to Kenya before East Africa, so before East African integration. Now they are doing about $600 million, 2011 figure, 6 times what they were
doing before the East African Federation.
So it is true that we are all gaining, and in fact the fastest growing are not necessarily Kenya.
Okay, thank you so much, Ambassador Dr. SEZIBERA. I just want you to allay my fears in one statement. Given the state of affairs that Tanzania evicted Rwandese without the permission of East African Community, and Kenya going to Somalia without the permission of the East African Community, and Uganda being in Sudan without informing the East African Community, is East Africa nonetheless working? One statement.
Well, first of all, I don't think they do so without informing. But second, the mere fact that we're having East African integration does not mean that countries' interests go away. They still remain. And the national interest, of course, must be protected, whether it is for Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, or Tanzania. That is a given. I think what we are doing is putting in mechanisms for discussions and dialogue. And also to make sure that countries do not act against the interests of East Africa. That is why we, as East Africa, are going to convene a meeting of all these countries to agree on how you handle illegal immigrants in East Africa, informed by the experience in Tanzania. Because it certainly cannot be right that we integrate and then we have East Africans called either refugees or illegal immigrants or whatever it is, whatever the label we give them.
Yeah.
So
but the concept is wrong.
I think the concept is wanting, and therefore we have to sit down as the 5 partner states and agree on how we handle this category of people. And that is something that has been informed by what happened in the United Republic of Tanzania, but it has also happened in some of our other partner states.
You've been watching Urban TV Exclusive, and if you are Ugandan, you have every reason to be excited about the East African community, because from what I get from Ambassador Dr. Richard SEZIBERA, we are the 2nd biggest economic beneficiary of the East African community. So the Kenya phobia is just that, a phobia. Ambassador Dr. SEZIBERA, it's been exciting having you on Urban TV Exclusive. I am hoping that some other time in the near future, we will have you again. I wish you well, and I wish the East African community very well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me once again.
Until next time, it is good night.